Hi, welcome to our Fulbright informational webinar. Thank you for joining me. My name is Kate Theobald. I am the National Scholarships and Fellowships Advisor at the University of West Georgia. And for the purposes of Fulbright, I'm also our FPA or Fulbright Program Advisor. So you'll hear that term some throughout the presentation. Just know that when you see FPA, that's me. So first, what is Fulbright? Well, basically, Fulbright is an opportunity to spend a year, sometimes a little longer, abroad, earning a graduate degree, conducting research, or serving as an assistant English teacher. So there are really two tracks with Fulbright, and we'll explore both. One is study research, which allows you to either earn that graduate degree or work on research abroad, and the other is ETA, or English Teaching Assistant, that allows you to be an assistant English teacher in a classroom abroad. And really, in both, you're connecting with community, and Fulbright is focused on educational and cultural exchange, lasting connections, and mutual understanding. So you're really part of the fabric of the community, regardless of which Fulbright track you choose. And that's really important with a Fulbright, that you're looking for that in-depth, abroad experience. So regardless of the track that you choose, there are some benefits that go with all grants. With some Fulbright grants, there are different benefits depending on which country you go to or which track of Fulbright you've chosen, but all of the grants include round-trip transportation to your host country, funding to cover your room and board, accident and sickness health benefits, living expenses, that sort of thing. Basically, Fulbright funds at a graduate student standard of living. So you're not rolling in it, but you're living comfortably while you're abroad, and you don't have to worry about those living expenses. In some countries, there are some other things that grants might include. You can see that on the other side of the screen. If you're going study research to earn a graduate degree, your tuition may be included. Even if it's not, don't let that scare you away from a certain country. Sometimes tuition is very low, or there's not tuition in a certain country. So we'll dig in deeper to that if you see that a particular country you want to go to does not include tuition. Many include a monthly stipend. The ETAs, or English Teaching Assistants, do receive a monthly stipend for the work that they're doing, in addition to the other grant benefits that are already included. So depending on what country you go to, there may be different benefits, and depending on what work you do, but essentially Fulbright will cover your experience there for the most part. In order to be eligible to apply for a Fulbright, you have to already have a bachelor's degree in hand by the time that you leave for your Fulbright experience. So if you're a junior now and you want to spend your senior year applying for a Fulbright, and then after graduation you'll leave on your Fulbright, that's perfect. That's kind of the ideal timeline. If you're already a senior, or maybe you've already graduated and you're an alum looking at this presentation, that's okay. Fulbright's still open to you as long as you have that bachelor's degree in hand and you've not yet earned your PhD. You do have to be a U.S. citizen by the application deadline, and then there are some country-specific requirements depending on where you're going. Let's talk for a moment about the Fulbright Study Research track. Most of our students from West Georgia who are applying for Fulbright Study Research are going to do a graduate program, typically a master's degree abroad. A lot of master's programs abroad are only 1 year, so you can do that within the time frame of your Fulbright grant. There are approximately 140 countries that allow for Fulbright Study Research, so you'll definitely have some options. You will apply to a graduate program in another university at the same time that you're applying for Fulbright. So Fulbright is basically what funds your experience at that university. So you choose the university and the master's program first, and you'll apply to that program sometimes simultaneously with the Fulbright application, depending on how that application cycle works. You may or may not have your acceptance in hand from the university on the date that your Fulbright application is due. But that's okay, because everyone applying in that country will be on that same timeline. But you should pick a school that you feel reasonably sure that you'll be accepted to, and that you can show that in your application. So as you're applying to Fulbright, they know that this is really something that's attainable for you. So you'll need to really think about what you want to get a graduate degree in, or if you're going the research track, what you want to research. But typically, like I said, our students coming out of undergrad are going into a master's program abroad. So you think about what you want to study, where you want to study it, why that program is absolutely the best one for you, And then you kind of make that case through your Fulbright application for why Fulbright should fund that study. The other track is the Fulbright ETA, or English Teaching Assistant. ETAs are placed in classrooms in other countries. It's available in about 75 countries to serve as an English-speaking presence in the classroom. So you're not the lead teacher in the classroom, you're an assistant teacher. It could be any grade level from kindergarten up to university, although you apply for a Fulbright eyes wide open. So on the country pages, which we'll take a look at a country page in a minute, it tells you what grade levels are available within that country. And then as you're writing your application, you can write about what grades you might want to teach or kind of what ages you're really talented in teaching and serving. ETAs are also cultural ambassadors and engage in their host community. So teaching is part of what you'll do while you're there, and then the other part is some sort of community engagement project. Now, study research students do have community engagement projects as well, although they're not quite as in-depth as what an ETA might do. So even if you don't think you're going to grow up to be a teacher or even an English teacher, that's okay. ETA could still really be for you if you're looking for a really purposeful, meaningful year after undergrad or maybe even after your master's to have an in-depth abroad experience where you're engaging and serving in a community abroad. This could be a really great opportunity for you, regardless of what your ultimate career goals are and if those don't include teaching. I wanted to spend some time real quick just talking about the parts of the application. Of course, there's the general application questions, but then the essays are where we spend the most of our time prepping your Fulbright application. There's 2 essays. There's a statement of grant purpose, which is 1 page long, single space typed if you're applying for an ETA, and it's 2 pages if you're applying for study research, and then there's a 1-page personal statement. So it's not a lot of writing, but it needs to be really, really strong writing, both in terms of your actual writing, but also in terms of the content. And the content is really where your Fulbright readers will be more focused. So we will spend a lot of time. Fulbright recommends 6 to 12 drafts with your FPA. So we'll spend a lot of time working on those 2 essays. But then there are also other parts of the application you would need to focus on. If you're going to a country that requires foreign language experience, then you'll have a foreign language evaluation that you'll choose someone here to complete that evaluation, usually a professor that you've already worked with and taken classes from. You'll need 3 letters of recommendation, so we'll need to start thinking about who those letters might come from if you're serious about applying. And then, of course, your transcripts. If you're earning a graduate degree abroad, you may or may not need an affiliation letter. Typically, it's just for research, but some graduate programs you need to show that you've already made a connection at that school. And then if you're an arts candidate, you'll need a portfolio of your work as well. So looking at the Fulbright application timeline and the process, I have the dates from this past cycle. So the 2019 dates, we've not established all of our 2020 dates except for that first one, the commitment deadline. That is May 1st every year. So it takes about a year to apply for a Fulbright. A lot of that time is waiting. You're not actually writing the entire time, but I want to walk you through what that year of application looks like. So you start late in the spring semester. Now is the perfect time to start exploring because our commitment deadline is May 1st. And all that means with the commitment deadline is that you know what country you want to apply for. If you're applying for a graduate program, you know what graduate program you want to apply for. We've met and kind of talked through your plans and your goals with Fulbright, and you're saying that you are all in. So you need to make that decision that, yes, I'm absolutely applying, I'm all in, let's go for this by May 1st. So you do have some time. I'm recording this mid to late March, so you have some time between now, if you're watching it right when this goes up, until that commitment deadline of May 1st to really ask questions and make some decisions. And then after you've made your commitment through kind of early in the fall semester, usually right before classes start, you're drafting essays, you're gathering your recommendations, all of that real work on the meat of the application happens then. And you don't have to be on campus to do that. We can do that virtually. So if you have plans to be off campus or doing something else, not taking classes, whatever that is over the summer, that's okay. We work a lot in Google Docs. We can always do a virtual meeting So you don't have to be here to work on that. So wherever you're going to be this summer, you can work on the bulk of that application. And then we have our campus deadline in August, right before classes get started. That campus deadline is the deadline that you need to have in your head. That's the deadline for all of your writing for your application to be finished. We understand that sometimes with faculty being away during the summer, it can be difficult to get all 3 of your rec letters in by that deadline, though we urge you to really try. But all of your parts of the app need to be completed by that campus deadline. And then we mock the process. So that's what that campus deadline through early October and campus interviews are. We mock the Fulbright review process on campus. So your application will be reviewed by a faculty committee. We try for that to be faculty who have not already looked at your app and don't know you, so that it's fresh eyes on your application. You'll have an interview with that committee. The interview does not determine whether you're allowed to ultimately submit to Fulbright or not. By the time you've gotten to that point in the application process, we're very confident that you will submit to Fulbright. That interview allows your reviewers to give you feedback, to talk through maybe some weaker parts in your application so that you can go through 1 or 2 more rounds of edits before you actually submit. And you'll submit in early October. Usually it's in the single-digit dates in October. That 2020 date has been published. I haven't updated it here yet, but that is on the Fulbright website. And that national deadline is when you need to have everything in and you're actually submitting to Fulbright. So at this point, we've gone May to October, so that's several months of our year. And then we begin the waiting part of the application process. Usually in late January, you'll get initial notification on semi-finalist decisions. Semi-finalists are students whose applications have been reviewed here in the U.S. and the Fulbright committees here in the U.S. have chosen to send your application on to the country. So you've made it through kind of a first round of reviews, and at that point, if your application was sent on to be reviewed in your country, you're considered a Fulbright semi-finalist. And that right there is an incredible honor and absolutely something that we celebrate. Then from that initial notification time through May, usually March to May, although some come out a hair earlier, but typically it is April, May, you'll have your finalist notification. So those are applications that were sent to the countries for the semifinalists, reviewed in country, and those are the ones that have been selected to receive the Fulbright. So with Fulbright, the language they use is finalist, and if you're a finalist, you have been selected. There's not another round of review after that. The only thing that would keep you from moving from a finalist to actually being a Fulbrighter in country is if there was some reason that the U.S. Didn't allow you to travel internationally, like if you were on a no-fly list or something like that. It's very, very rare for that to happen. If you're a finalist, you've been selected. You're going on that Fulbright unless for some reason you choose not to. So now we've been from that May 1st commitment deadline through the next May when you're notified of your decision. And then typically students will leave for their Fulbrights in the fall. So it does take a long time. I know I'm recording this while all of our instruction is online and we're all home right now. And so it seems really strange perhaps to be talking about a fellowship that can take you abroad for a year. But when we consider that at the time of this recording, that start to your Fulbright grant is 16 to 18 months from now, it is something to be thinking about and starting the process on. So let's talk about choosing a country for your Fulbright. There's so many things to consider. You may have a passion for a country or a connection to a country already, and throughout this whole presentation you've been thinking, oh my gosh, absolutely, I'm going here. But you may not have that, and you might need to do some exploration. So think about whether you want to do study research or ETA, where you might want to do that. Look at your languages that you have some knowledge of or that you speak. Some countries require language experience, others don't, so that might make a big difference for you. We'll look at the statistics for how competitive each award is in a moment. And I urge you to think creatively. You don't have to choose Spain or Mexico for Spanish. You don't have to choose Germany for German. If you're not absolutely passionate about those countries, there are lots of other countries that you could choose where you could put those language skills to use. So I want to back out of this presentation for a moment and look at the Fulbright website. I've put the link here, but it's very easy to find. If you just Google Fulbright, it should be the first thing that comes up. So I want to show you a countries page, and I want to show you how to find statistics. So I'm going to exit out of this presentation. Here we go, and go over to the Fulbright webpage. So this is the home page for Fulbright. And when we're looking at this, I want you first to look, that's not what I meant to do, that's okay. I want you first to look at the countries tab. The countries tab is divided into areas, regions of the world. All of the countries that are colored in are countries where Fulbright goes. So as you can see, there are a lot of countries to choose from. I'm just going to look at one to give you an example today, but I encourage you to go to the website, click around, play with it, see what it is that you can find for countries that you might be interested in. So let's go to Europe. And we're going to take a look at Germany. Germany seems to be a popular choice for a lot of students at West Georgia. So we're going to look at that. Once you've clicked on Germany, you see that there are 65 Open Study Research Awards. There's 140 ETAs, and there's also 5 Young Professional Journalist Awards. So that's a specific award. Some countries will have those. So if you're looking perhaps at ETA, we'll click on that. You see there's 140 ETAs to Germany each year. You want to read this whole page. It's not that much text, but there are some really important things that you want to read, so do make sure you read all of it. You want to look at the candidate profile, of course, to see if you're a good fit for the program. You also want to look at this foreign language proficiency. So for Germany, for ETAs, they require an intermediate level of German, and they define that as at least 2 years of college level study of German or the equivalent prior to commencing on your grant. So that's really important. If you're thinking about being an ETA to Germany and you have no experience with the German language, then this is not the award for you. But if you do have some experience with German, perhaps you've taken those German classes here at West Georgia, then this could be a great option for you. And then with ETAs specifically, you really want to look at placement type. So you could be placed anywhere from elementary to secondary school, and you can talk about that in your application. Look to see if there's any ineligibility things that might take you out of being able to be considered. And then just read everything else. Make sure that you have a good grasp on what it is that's required for your award. And then if you're looking at study research, in Germany there's 65 study research awards. It's very similar. There's an award profile, that sort of thing, a candidate profile. You want to look at the foreign language proficiency recommendations. For study research, they recommend a novice, which is 1 year of college level study or the equivalent. You do want to keep in mind, they say here that many German universities offer master's programs in English, but if you're applying to a master's program that is taught entirely in German, you might want more than a novice level of German, so pay attention to that. Make sure that under proposal types, graduate degree enrollment says yes. It's not just independent research, but it's actually earning that graduate degree. You'll want to look at affiliation, which means the German university you will be attending. What are the requirements there? And you want to look at the affiliation fees and tuition and see what it is that Fulbright covers or maybe doesn't cover. And like I said, if it doesn't cover tuition, don't be afraid of that. Don't be scared by that. Tuition is a scary word here in the US, but it's not everywhere. So just really read those details and see what it is that you'll be required to pay in tuition, if anything. And then, of course, the rest of it's important for you to read as well. So I want to hop back into our presentation, talking about choosing a current country. Oh, we forgot to look at statistics. Okay, I'm not going to re-record, so let me just pop back over to the website and we'll just let that stay in. Up at the top corner, there's the statistics button, almost hidden. I'm going to put a caveat on this. It's important to look at the statistics just to know what you're getting into, but don't let the stats drive your decision for whether you'll apply for the Fulbright in that particular country or not. If your heart is really in a certain country, you have a passion for that country, that's where you should apply regardless of the statistics. Especially if you're looking at going to the UK, those stats can be a little daunting, but we have a West Georgia student who's a current Fulbrighter at University College London. So even those more competitive Fulbright applications still can be within your grasp. You just want to know what you're getting into. So with that said, click the stats button, look at study research and ETA. We've been looking at Germany, so we'll look at Germany again to continue our example. You don't want to look at everything. Narrow it down to your region. Germany. We'll look at study research and ETA. So we'll click to expand that. And here we can see 3 years worth of data. Now, and this says 2021. This means that this is the cohort that will be there in the 2021 academic year. Okay, so the 1920 year is current, 2021 is the awards that were given coming up. So you can see how many people have applied and how many people were actually awarded. So we look at that study research. There were 238 applications this year, 261 last year, 311 the year before, all kind of in that same ballpark. Well, there's a pretty big difference between the 311 and the 238. So we can't exactly predict what your application year will look like, but this gives you a good idea of exactly how competitive your award is. Okay, now we'll jump back into the PowerPoint. We're almost finished with this presentation, but there are a few more things I want to go over. I do have some tips here for making your application stand out. I'm not going to outline all of them to you right now, but I encourage you to come back and really look through this slide once you've decided that yes, you're absolutely going for it and you're going to apply for a Fulbright. The most important thing I can tell you now as far as tips go while you're in the decision-making process is this first point here. Know what your goals are, be specific, and be able to write about them. So you need to know what country you want to go to and why. Fulbright is not the goal. It's a step on the way to the goal. So think about what your ultimate career or academic goals are. Where do you want to make a difference in the world? What is it that you want to achieve? What kind of work do you want to do with your life? And then think about, how does a Fulbright help me get there? What country do I need to go to? What work do I need to be doing, whether a graduate degree or an ETA? And you want to be as absolutely specific as possible and be able to write about that. So I have some brainstorming exercises to leave us with. So I'm going to pop some questions up on the screen, and after each question, I encourage you to pause the video, take some time to actually write your answers out, and then resume the video for the next question. So consider these questions as you begin to think about your own potential Fulbright application process, and I want you to dream big, okay? Assume that you will achieve everything that you set out here. So our first question, what is your ultimate career goal and why? Assume you'll earn the necessary degrees, assume you'll be admitted to whatever programs you need to be admitted to in order for that to happen, but what is that ultimate goal? Okay, take a moment, pause the video, write down your answers, and then come back. Okay, I hope you took some time to actually pause and come back. We're going to do that between each question. So now that you've outlined your ultimate career goal, I want you to describe the world that you come from. Now this question might be a little tougher. You might have to pause for a little longer. But describe your family, your community, your school, your experiences, and then tell how your world has shaped your dreams and aspirations. Okay, go ahead and pause and write for a few minutes. All right, welcome back. Hopefully you have a good bit of writing or some ideas jotted down to describe your world. Our next question, is there a country or language that you have a particular interest in or a passion for, and why that country? Remember, Fulbright wants you to be specific, so be as specific as possible. So go ahead, take a moment, pause the video, we'll come back. Okay, welcome back. Here's our next question. How do you engage with your community right now? I promise all these questions do connect, but I want you to think about not how you serve your community, but how you engage with your community. How are you part of the fabric of whatever community you're in right now? So take a moment and pause and jot down some ideas. All right, welcome back. We only have a few more questions. I know you've already written a lot, so let's jump right into our next one. What is your particular part of America, and how will you represent America to people in another country? So when we think of the U.S., there's a lot of cultural difference. I know as a child, I moved from northern Indiana to middle Georgia, and wow, what a difference. So think about your particular part of America and how you'll represent that to people in another country. So pause the video and take a few minutes to jot down your ideas. All right, welcome back. I do hope you've been pausing the video, writing, and resuming it as we go along. Here's our next question. What are you doing now, or what have you done in the past that has prepared you to achieve your ultimate career goal? And don't go too far in the past. Fulbright doesn't really want to hear things that you did in high school unless it was incredibly meaningful, but really focus on as a university student and right now. So what have you done? What have you done in the past that's prepared you to achieve that ultimate career goal that you wrote about in the first question? So go ahead and pause. Okay, let's come back and do this next question. Why is it necessary for you to go to the country you've described in the earlier questions in order to achieve your goals? So here you're working on establishing those connections. So go ahead and pause the video. All right, welcome back. There's not another question. You've done all the writing I'm going to ask you to do today, but I do want to leave you with a thought. Your answers to all these questions should be connected pretty logically. Your Fulbright application is going to tell a single story of who you are, even though there's multiple questions and 2 different essays. So if any of your answers to these questions feel disjointed or don't really connect to your other answers, I want you to think about how you can revise them so that they do fit. And keep in mind, you might not simply be revising your writing. You might need to take some time to reconsider what your larger goals are. And as we wrap up, I'm just going to leave you on this slide here that gives some information for some other National Fellowship opportunities. These are some that we're not doing specific webinars on, but that you might be interested in. So feel free to read through this, pause the video if you need to so that you can catch these details. If you have any questions about anything that we've talked about today, please feel free to shoot me an email. My email address is kate@westga.edu. We'll also have at least one live Fulbright session where we go through this information this semester. So if you have any questions, watch for that announcement. And of course, send me an email. I'm happy to do a one-on-one video chat with you as well. Thank you.